Jack Babcock is Canada's last living veteran of the Great War. In the early fall of 1916, just past his 16th birthday, he finally sees an opportunity to get shipped overseas.
And they called for a draft of 50 men to go to the RCRs. That was a Royal Canadian Regiment of Peacetime outfit. I took my physical. They asked me how old I was, and I said 18. And I went over on the California, and I was seasick damn near all the way.
What strikes me is the lengths these guys went to get overseas and to get into the front lines. They didn't have to join up in the first place. They had every opportunity, once they get in, if they didn't like it, to get out again. All they had to do was go to the commanding officer and say, look, I'm only 15, send me home. But they didn't.
Jack arrives in England on the SS Californian after claiming to be 18, expecting he will soon find himself on the front lines.
You were in the Royal Canadian Regiment, and they didn't have any record of how old you actually were?
Oh, my papers hadn't come through yet. I landed in Liverpool, and then in the spring, they gathered up all the young fellows that were underage in the Canadian Army and shipped them into one outfit. There was 1,300 of us. They were wild and March hares.
But although still boys, they were disciplined like men.
I remember a kid, he was just he was a small child, and he got 9 months in Wandsworth Prison near London for stealing a $1 watch. The poor kid, I felt awful sorry for him. I think his name was Quinn.
How old was he, Quinn?
Well, he was underage. He was probably about 16 years old. It was too bad that he had to go to Wandsworth. That was a miserable place. After hours at night, they'd give him a rusty chain and some sandpaper, and you'd burnish the links in that chain with that sandpaper. The military prisons in England were tough.
Back in Canada, attitudes toward the war are changing, and a new policy affects the boy soldiers' chances of ever reaching the front lines.
Well, 1917 was a bad year in the war. All illusions of a quick victory were obviously gone. It dawned on people that it was a bad idea to be allowing 13, 14, 15-year-olds to fight in the front lines. The government gets onto the units at the front and says, fine, go through the ranks and start sending back the teenagers, because the consequences of them being killed in great numbers are unacceptable now.
I was taken out of the 26th Reserve and sent to the Young Soldiers Battalion at Bexhill-on-Sea in Sussex. When the guy got within a few months of being 19 years old, you were transferred to D Company. When they became 19, they went to France. But about a third of the kids that were in the outfit had been to France.
Illegally?
Yeah. We had one kid named Kinley. He was, I think he was 15 years old. He'd been to France, and he had won the DCM, that's Distinguished Conduct Medal. I don't know what for, but he'd won it. And he was a wild little rascal.
I think someone like Jack would have felt really frustrated. I mean, he thought that when the unit was shipping out originally that he was in the clear, finds himself sent to Halifax to hurry up and wait, gets the call for overseas, figures he's bound for the trenches, exactly what he wants to do, And then he gets shuttled off to one of these young soldiers' battalions. I mean, how annoying would that have been? You joined up to do a job and you want to do it, and here you are stuck in the backwoods of England, waiting.
For the Young Soldiers Battalion, much of the time was spent drilling, hardly the adventure these boys had signed up for.
On Saturday morning, we'd take a route march, as we called, then walk about 10 miles. 5 miles out in the country and 5 miles back. And that was the most pleasant part of the whole damn thing. Because otherwise, it's having us doing Form 4, Swarms Deep, and all that horse shit. They drilled the hell out of us.
In the fall of 1918, the Young Soldiers Battalion is moved even further from the front.
They shipped us to North Wales, and it was called Kinmel Park Camp.
Conditions at Kinmel Park Camp place it among the worst. Perched on a hillside, crammed with 3,500 soldiers living in drafty shacks. Nearby, shopkeepers charge inflated prices for what few basics the soldiers need to buy.
When you add the combination of the boredom in these Young Soldiers Battalions, the great enthusiasm of the kids who've just come from overseas, and the anger of the guys who've been brought back from the trenches, and who see no good reason other than the fact that they're a couple months under 18, it is a potentially explosive mix for unrest.
November 11th.